Daniel Black joining us from SB Nation's For Whom the Cowbell Tolls, the Mississippi State platform right there, covering all the sports, but especially, of course, we talk football. And the bowl game mentioned there, of course, is the TaxSlayer Bowl against Louisville. I find it an intriguing matchup because of Lamar Jackson's presence, because Mississippi State's a team that I would like to see play again. And I just think anytime that you get two Power 5 teams together that would normally not play, and they're like-seeded teams. So once these teams go out and schedule non-conference opponents during the regular season, by the time 4 or 5 years rolls around, we see some non-favorable matchups in regards to maybe the best team in the Big Ten playing the 7th best team in the Big 12. But the bowl seeding is usually pretty fair, and it creates intriguing matchups that are fair. And I think over the course of 20 or 25 games, you can get a feel for who is the best conference or the second best, and you can kind of get an evaluation there. So for Louisville and for Mississippi State, certainly they're not winning championships. A lot of people would consider this a throwaway game. It's an exhibition. So we've got two different camps in terms of bowl play. I certainly think it's an opportunity for a Mississippi State, or for really most teams in the country, to display and cap off the 2017 campaign. And if College Football Nation's watching any game, they've got to watch Mississippi State Louisville. So they've got the attention of the nation for one of the very few times, aside from the Egg Bowl, that's kind of a unique situation on Thanksgiving night, have the attention of College Football Nation against a guy who won the Heisman Trophy last season. So just your thoughts about the assignment against the Cardinals.
Well, it is interesting. I would say that we would have definitely more of an advantage had this eventful last week or so had not occurred. You mentioned the Egg Bowl. We lose to a highly, we were highly favored in that game, lose to an underdog rival while losing our starting quarterback, and then losing our head coach a couple days later, and he takes multiple parts of his coaching staff with him to Florida, including our defensive coordinator. So if you look at that front, it is an extreme disadvantage for us going against Lamar Jackson, who's putting up better numbers this season than he did a year ago, and he won the Heisman a year ago. And we don't have a coordinator. However, we're still very talented on defense, and we played extremely well on defense this season. We were one of the top defenses statistically in the SEC, which is pretty remarkable, knowing that we were in the bottom third, or not even bottom third, bottom just 3 teams in the SEC defensively a year ago. There's one good thing here. We're pretty familiar with the Gator/TaxSlayer Bowl. We've been in it twice before in this decade, in 2010 and 2012. 2010 was probably the most memorable bowl game under Dan Mullen, when we beat Michigan by a pretty good 38 points, which got Rich Rodriguez fired. Or it helped get Rich Rodriguez fired, excuse me. It's definitely interesting how these two teams are extremely offensively minded. Bobby Petrino, if had Dan Mullen stayed, Bobby Petrino and Dan Mullen is as good of an offensive coaching matchup as you could get. It's an offensive coaching matchup that we've seen before when Bobby Petrino was at Arkansas, and that was Dan Mullen's first 3 seasons at Mississippi State. Petrino took those battles 3-0, but one of which in 2010 went to double overtime. But it's interesting to see how Mississippi State responds from this eventful last couple of weeks, how the players respond, how the coaches respond. Greg Knox will be our interim head coach. He was a running backs coach, and it's been highly reported that he is going to Florida. In fact, he was pulled off. This is reported, not confirmed, but it was reported that he was pulled off the recruiting trail for recruiting some of our guys to Florida secretly, which I'm glad he was pulled off the recruiting trail if that's the case. But still, he has shown that he has somewhat of a commitment to Mississippi State through this bowl game. He seemed pretty committed, and we'll just see how it goes from there. The biggest thing in this game for us is that this is an opportunity for Keaton Thompson, our backup quarterback. You mentioned that he played a large majority of the Egg Bowl as our starting quarterback. But before that, he only played probably around a grand total of 12 snaps in garbage time of games like Charleston Southern and up 45-7 against Kentucky and stuff like that. So I don't think he was really ready. A lot of people were saying, oh, well, I thought this backup quarterback for y'all was good. Well, he is good. He just has never been in a situation in which he has to start for a quarterback that's racking up insane numbers over the last 2 years and is, getting comparisons to the likes of Dak Prescott and other Dan Mullen quarterbacks. He's down, and Keaton Thompson has to inherit this position on primetime game Thanksgiving night, ESPN, against our biggest rival. So I don't think he was ready for that situation, and he struggled in the early on in that football game. But you mentioned we got some touchdowns late. We put together some good drives, and we nearly came back and won the thing. We were down 31-13, and we ended up cutting it to 31-28, which was the final score. So that's the most intriguing thing for me, is to see how Keaton Thompson does. This is sort of poetic justice for Mississippi State fans, because we're going against Peter Sirmon, who was our defensive coordinator a year ago, a man who many Mississippi State fans credit for our struggles last season going 5-7, because it's pretty obvious if you just look at the numbers that our defense was flat out god awful last year. It was ranked in the hundreds nationally in total defense, ranked, I believe, either 12th or 13th. I believe 13th, only ahead of Ole Miss last season in total defense. And now he's at Louisville. Louisville struggled mightily in the beginning part of the season on defense, but has improved pretty significantly. They were in the hundreds in total defense in the first half of the season. Now they're somewhere in the 50s. I don't know the exact number. But furthermore, Louisville is really gaining some confidence. They've won their last 3 games, finished the season at a solid 8-4. They were rumors with the whole Tom Jurich, Rick Pitino situation early part in the season, what Bobby Petrino would do, what his future would be like at Louisville. But so far, it looks like he's pretty set with these past 3 games. So that's the intriguing part, to see where Mississippi State is as a team with the coaching departures and the injury of Nick Fitzgerald, going against a pretty red-hot Louisville team and going against our former defensive coordinator. It's for sure, I agree, an intriguing matchup that it'll definitely be a test for Mississippi State to see how we'll respond.
Yeah, it's a good barometer, and it's a third ACC opponent in the past 4 bowl seasons for Mississippi State, losing the Orange Bowl to Georgia Tech under Dak Prescott, but coming back against NC State and really dominating that game against NC State, and I believe the Music City Bowl, if I'm remembering correctly, where the locale of that game was before the Miami of Ohio win in the St. Petersburg Bowl last year for Mississippi State. So the Bulldogs at 8-4 with the last game lost to Ole Miss without Nick Fitzgerald for much of the game, taking on Louisville also at 8-4. Daniel Black breaking down Mississippi State football, doing a load of work here. Daniel, you really covered the gamut from top to bottom, so we appreciate you jumping on board, and we encourage everyone to go to For Whom the Cowbell Tolls on the Mississippi State platform on SB Nation. Daniel, we appreciate it. Maybe we can reel you back in one more time before the bowl game to break down some personnel.
I'd be happy to do it. I appreciate it as always, Mark.